Hello and welcome to Ensuring Success 2019. This is session 6 of 10. I hope all of you are sticking with us for all 10 sessions because, we're doing it, so you should too. So this session is how to be a better technology advisor and use technology to be that better advisor. So I'm Gail Perry, Editor-in-Chief of CPA Practice Advisor Magazine, and this is, as I said, Ensuring Success. It is made possible because of our sponsors. So I would like to read their names real quickly so you're aware of who's making this event possible for all of us and for you to get CPE credit. Our sponsors this year are Paychex, CPA.com, ADP, Chase Inc., Wolters Kluwer, Intuit, Gusto, Canopy, Avalara, Sage, BQE Core, eFileForBiz.com, and Xero. And in particular, we would like to thank Xero for sponsoring this session right here, right now. For those of you who are just joining us right now, I'll tell you briefly how CPE works. We will present 3 codes during the session. They'll appear on the bottom of your screen, and I'll call attention to them to make sure you're looking. You'll need to write down those codes. And at the end of the day, when you're done with all the sessions you want to see, you'll click on the CPE tab at the very top of the screen you're watching, and that will present you with a form that you can use to enter all the codes from all the sessions you've attended, and that's how you'll get your CPE. It's that easy. If you have any questions, you can reach us at info@ensuringsuccess.com, info@ensuringsuccess.com. And if you're on social media, our hashtag is DecemberCPE. So please use that and talk about us. A little shout out to Isaac, who's handling our social media back in Oklahoma, actually. Isaac O'Bannon is our managing editor of the site, so he is on Twitter and Facebook today. I am joined by Tate Henshaw and Amanda Aguillard, and I would like them to introduce themselves briefly and tell you a little bit about themselves before we go into the content for this session.
Perfect. My name's Tate Henshaw, and I'm here from Polley Clark, which is a CPA firm in Atlanta, Georgia, where we work with primarily musicians, entertainers, and professional athletes, and also have, for the last 2 years or so, been a national ambassador for Xero, which can mean different things on different days, but going around and really impressing the value of Xero and other cloud software on other advisors and accountants and bookkeepers from a peer perspective. So,
excellent.
Yeah, and I'm Amanda Aguillard. I'm a CPA with a practice in New Orleans. It's a pretty small practice. We do a lot of professional services work. I also have a training company called Elephant, so I spend a lot of time helping firm owners leverage technology to build the practices of their dreams, whatever that means for them. And like Tate, I'm a Xero national ambassador, so I get to go around the country and talk to other advisors about using Xero and scaling their practices on a cloud-based platform.
Excellent. So we're finding in the profession today that there's a major push towards telling accountants they need to be advisors to their clients. And it's not just telling them they need to do it, it's pretty much a given that that's the direction the profession is going in for a lot of reasons. And we're actually going to discuss a lot of those reasons, in particular in a session on future trends in the profession that we're doing a couple hours from now. But right now, what we want to do is talk about how technology can help accountants move into that advisory role and what that looks like. So I'd like to have you guys talk a little bit about the role of accountant versus advisor from the client's perspective and what you're seeing that clients are expecting and how you're shaping that in your own practices.
Sure. Well, for us, what we've really seen is the expectations are different for an accountant versus an advisor. And it's kind of funny because I've heard just this weekend people talking about taking accountant out of the name of their company. The reason being, I think as a potential client, when you see accountant, you have a very specific type of connotation attached to that role. And for me, it's more of a vendor relationship versus when you're talking an advisor, you're talking more of a partner, more of someone who's really going to be there with you along the whole journey. So, I definitely think that the profession is moving in that direction, and it's really been rewarding for us to take on more of that advisor role.
Yeah, I feel like clients want a partner. They want somebody to sit shoulder to shoulder with them in running their business. And as accountants, we're uniquely positioned to do that. We understand the financial details of running a business, but more importantly, we can interpret those details and help them make the decision. So most small business owners are not looking for someone to do a tax return. That's not what they want. That's what they think they need sometimes. But when we can sit next to them and help them to interpret financial data and even advise them on things beyond financial data, that becomes a better relationship and that adds value to the business.
So I'm going to put you guys on the spot just a little bit. And can you think of examples of situations where you've been with clients and you've been doing their compliance work for a long period of time, and there's either an aha moment or a point in time where you realize that this relationship either has evolved or needs to evolve into that advisor role? How do you recognize when the relationship needs to go there?
Well, I think when your clients start to make assumptions about their businesses that maybe aren't based in data. So we have a couple of retail clients one in particular who assumed they needed to go online, that they needed to branch out into the online e-commerce space. When we look at the data, we realize, no, there are some limitations in that e-commerce space that it would be difficult for them to overcome. So that put us in a position where we could interpret data at a big scale because we've been doing the compliance work and the accounting work for a few years. We could look at it objectively and help them to make a better business decision. Not something that's emotional, but something that's objective.
Yeah, definitely. And I think part of it is asking the right type of questions when you're meeting with those clients and really listening to what they are saying. I think too many times we have people come in, we kind of have our pitch of we do, tax returns, we do bookkeeping, we do payroll, all this kind of stuff, but we're not really listening to what the client's core issues are. It could be around, they're printing too many checks. We've had people that, have issues, they're using a courier. I kind of messed that word up a little bit. They're using a courier to send checks all over the country or whatever. And so that's a clear way we can help them out from a technology perspective. We have people who are struggling with scheduling employees and all that could entail. And so if we really listen to what the business owners are struggling with, then we can see how that engagement can change.
And I think it's also important to remember, your clients have generally this one business. This is their one business. Us as advisors or accountants, we have perspective. So we have dozens or hundreds of clients. So there are things that we can just intuitively see that's going on in a particular business that the client who's in the weeds maybe can't identify. So as Tate was saying, you can kind of stand back, you can listen to what they're saying. Maybe what they're identifying as the problem actually is the problem, but it may not be. And we have that ability, I think, just for from the bulk of data and clients we're working with. I think some accountants are shy about saying,
calling an understatement.
saying I'm an advisor. They think that they're not qualified. But a lot of times they really are qualified just by listening and having the experience.
Yeah, definitely. Just from the fact of, with us specifically working with musicians, athletes, just the fact that we've worked with hundreds of musicians, that means we are an expert. It's not a thing to brag about. It's just, we've seen, different deals. We've seen different technologies used. We've seen all these things. So it gives us experience in that space. And it's the same thing with accountants. If you've done hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of tax returns and seen different planning scenarios and all this kind of stuff, you have that knowledge, and that knowledge is super valuable because, to Amanda's point, you got to realize that small business owner is in a very small bubble relative to what we've seen.
Yeah, I sure hear that a lot in the profession, especially lately, that there's this push to advisory is, the accountants feel like it's maybe going too fast because they're just not ready to say that. They're not ready to identify what that skill set is. So any pointers on how you can convince an accountant that he or she really is an advisor by like setting out specific skills that person can do?
I mean, when I'm speaking to other accountants, I talk about, okay, let's define what you're already doing. Because a lot of times they're caught up on, this is what I charge for, right? So they're saying, well, all I charge for is tax returns and bookkeeping and this. And my point would be, well, are you helping with, acquiring debt, helping the business be leveraged, helping even on a personal side, people get mortgages, and you're advising them on these type of decisions. And when you really step back and analyze all the things that they are doing when they talk to their clients, really you realize you're already doing a lot of this. It's just more of changing your business model to where you're able to sell it, obviously, and able to charge for it and make money for it and that sort of thing. But by and large, most of the people I talk to, they're already doing this kind of work. So it's just really changing that mindset.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think most of us have done something around advisory for years. We just haven't called it that. So to Tate's point, it's not just signing a tax return, but it is, what are your, what sort of retirement plans would help you on tax planning? What sort of technology, if you are opening a new business, what's the right technology for that? Those are all advisory products or capabilities. So I challenge the folks in the audience to maybe think about writing down what is it that we really do. Again, not what we're charging for, not what the bill says, but how are we helping our clients? And that's advisory.
Yeah, definitely.
So since you mentioned technology, what makes up the role of a technology advisor, an accounting technology advisor? What are the pieces and parts of that?
I think it's really what we were just talking about, but actually then utilizing those tools. So asking the right questions to where you understand what the pain points are for your clients, but then being able to know, hey, here's, a couple of options. And to our previous discussion, it's not necessarily you have to know everything, right? You just see what other people are using, your other clients, and okay, this seems to work. And being able to recommend those things or possibly leverage a platform that you're already using possibly for another service to add more value to your clients. I think if you look at today, we're in the convenience economy and we're in the curation economy. If we're talking about something like a Netflix, people pay for Netflix, not for the millions of shows, but because it tells you which ones you might like. And it's similar here. Anyone can go on, if we use Xero as an example, can go on and see all the apps that connect to Xero. What's the problem? There's 800 and something of them. So our role is knowing how to just filter that down and recommend the right pieces to kind of plug in, I think.
I'll add something too. I think technology advisory, being a technology advisor is less about technology than it is about process.
Yeah.
And it's about being able to dissect a business process or a business's ecosystem. So we've always been technology advisors for the most part when it comes to a general ledger, right? So we've all selected a general ledger.
Point.
Yeah. So we've always told our clients we like Xero, or other folks might use other things. But where we can expand now is that in this time of cloud-based software, now there are unlimited choices for integrations on the business processes. So if we can objectively look at what our clients' operations look like, look at the pieces, going back to like college and thinking about the parts of the accounting process. what pieces satisfy those needs for the clients. So if they have an accounts payable need, what is the platform that satisfies their needs there? If they have a receivables need, if they have a POS need, a payroll need, really, in our firm, we literally draw this out for our new clients. But we would say these are the processes that need to be addressed by a tech solution, and then that helps to filter out, what options are available to us. So if I have a client who needs a certain kind of payroll, we were just talking about this in the green room, which of those payroll solutions are going to fit best? Mm-hmm. So it's not so much about the technology, I think, as it is about the process and figuring out the requirements in the solutions and how those match.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's what, to our earlier discussion, people are afraid of a little bit, is they're afraid they're going to be poking in to these areas with their clients, but what they don't realize is the clients are just dying for this type of advice, because you talk about a typical small business owner client. I mean, they're bogged down with endless amounts of things that are not the reason they started that business, right? They started it because they were passionate about retail, or passionate about making music, or passionate about, whatever it is. And so when we get into talking about accounts payable and payroll and all those things, most likely, like 99.999% of the time, they're not passionate about the time that's taking them to do those processes. So if we're able to come in and alleviate some of that load, I mean, the value you're providing, and value can kind of get overused as a term sometimes, but the value you're providing is so much more than just that compliance-related work. And it is within our core competency to be able to provide that service. So.
And I'll add this too. I think in this day and age, we have so many resources as advisors. I'd encourage folks to go out and join, there's a Xero Facebook group. Throw those questions out there. Say, I have a client and these are their requirements on a payroll system. What are you guys using? And ask for advice. And people are so helpful and so honest and willing to share their experiences. That's a great place to start, and at least kind of narrow the scope a little bit and get a few key ideas about what you should be looking for.
Absolutely. You can get really quick feedback on what's not worked every time.
That's right.
You will get,
So
it's kind of like the Amazon reviews.
Yeah.
The people who had a bad experience are quick to get in there. So if you ask, hey, has anybody used this expense software? If anybody's had a bad experience, you will hear from it extremely quickly.
I agree, and there's so many accounting-related Facebook groups, and they're all, I've been to many, I belong to many, and they're all so interactive and honest. Yeah, people just, they'll give you their honest reviews, and then they'll give you advice on what else to choose and how it works. And we're going to talk a little bit more about how you make choices like that after we take a quick break. We want to learn a little bit. Actually, we're not going to break for a commercial on this first one, I believe. We're just going to give you your CPE code. So if you look at the bottom of the screen, you'll see the first code for this session. You want to write that one down if you're planning on collecting CPE credit, and there'll be 2 more later on in the session, and we can carry on. So it can be kind of overwhelming. So let's say you're an accountant, you're working with clients, you've got them in some kind of a general ledger program, and for purposes of this session, we'll say it's Xero, but it could be lots of things, but let's say it's Xero. So you do, I love Amanda's plan that you actually draw out the chart of what they're going to need in order to solve all the needs of their company. So, but then what? Where do you start? How do you pick all the pieces and know that they're going to fit and work together, and how do you make that happen?
So I would say there are a few in every one of those business processes. I'd say there are a few key players that are sort of obvious. I love a good startup, but I also want to make sure something's going to work. So I would start with those vetted and the apps that have been around or been used a lot. So I would start there, and here's the thing about apps, cloud-based apps, though, Gail, they all change all the time. So we've seen this. I mean, even since Tate and I have been with Xero, called the last 3, 4, 5 years, we've seen where where platforms have, this was their scope and now they're going here. And then maybe this app started here and there's crossover. So that is one thing that is going to be determined by client need, finding the best fit. But I'd go back and ask peers for their advice.
I think one thing that you have to always be cognizant of is streamlining internally versus customizing for clients. Because my point being, if you've got 100 clients and you do something totally different for all 100, while that may work for the individual clients, you're going to burn yourself out and you're not going to really be an expert at any of those, however many, let's say it's 800 apps then at that point, right?
You can't stay on top if they're changing all the time.
There's no way. And so it doesn't necessarily mean one app's better than the other, kind of like why Amanda and I, prefer Zero for a GL is because we know it's the best app that we can use. And so we're going to be able to provide the most value to our clients using that tool. And so the same thing, I think you want to really streamline internally, like, okay, payroll providers, maybe there's one or maybe there's two if one has specific requirements around, we were talking earlier, like agriculture or household payroll may have slightly different requirements. Maybe that means you use a different app, but not 10 different payroll apps, across your clients. And that affects from a training perspective as well. If you've got staff internally, you don't want to have them all be training on 10 different things. And so the same thing for, receipt tracking. There's certain things that most of your clients are going to need from a baseline perspective. They're going to have expenses, they're going to have payroll, they're going to have payables. So internally, you as a firm kind of researching and figuring out, okay, these are the ones that I really know work for payables and I'm confident in using it. And so then when you're drawing that diagram out, that's the app you're probably going to plug in to that part of the equation. Maybe there's outliers, or maybe there's one different app, maybe if it's a business specific app, but not every single app are you starting from scratch every single time.
Well, I think this also feeds into the other buzzword in the industry, which is niching or verticalization, right? So it's much easier to codify a core tech stack if you aren't trying to play in every 8 different sandboxes, right? So if at our firm we have a lot of small law firms and we have real estate brokerages, those two groups probably make up 2/3 of our clients. I know the law firm apps. I know which ones integrate with Zero, which ones don't, which ones are great and which ones aren't. Same thing with real estate brokerages. So even though those are pretty different industries, I can have a core tech stack that has a GL, a payroll system, maybe payables, and then add on the one industry piece that makes it a truly customized ecosystem. If I had to do that, though, with 12 or 15 or 20 different systems, it would be inefficient.
And the same thing, if I was to take on a law firm and try to start from scratch, even if I'm using the same things you're using, having not been trained on it, having not used it for multiple other clients, it's going to be a lot more difficult for me to be able to provide the same value to that same client. So we're very similar. We know, okay, in music, you've got certain apps that are just for bands that are on the road selling merchandise. We can afford to invest the time in really learning that app and possibly using different connectors or whatever to learn how to be more efficient with that app because we have multiple clients using it. If it was just one client, that would be really tough.
Now, speaking of taking the time to learn and stay on top of the app, how do you do that?
Well, there's something called Elephant. No, I'm just.
Yeah.
Amanda paid me to say that. No, I'm joking.
It's if you. I think obviously the apps have changed and there are different features. If you really learn the core app, it's easy to pick up the updates. I think what's more important even than understanding the details of an app is understanding how data flows within an ecosystem.
Yes.
Because once you understand that, you can take that and apply it to many different apps. So understanding the APIs between general ledgers and other add-ons, what kinds of data flows through, how that gets mapped. Like to me, understanding the wiring is more important than understanding this is the button I push in the app to do something. Because if I know, okay, and take an invoicing app or a POS system. So that is revenue coming in. How do I get revenue down to the general ledger? Well, in Xero, in most cases, these integrations are built around sending invoices into Xero. There are different ways those invoices can come in. That's more important, understanding that wiring, and sales data is coming into Xero via an invoice. That's more important than saying, okay, well, in this POS system, where is the button to generate the invoice? As the advisor, I'm going to be on the GL side most of the time. I'm going to see the problems probably on the GL side. I want to know what the wiring looks like so I can fix it.
Definitely. The way we've explained it internally is, we can build you this great race car, which is all these best of breed apps, but we're sort of the mechanic, that pit crew, because we need to know how all of these things are talking to each other. And when it's all working, it's beautiful, right? But the fact is, due to the fact that they're always changing, they're always updating, and for good reasons, to be a better app.
Yeah.
Sometimes the way data flows can break, sometimes the way data flows can change. So that's really what you have to pay attention to. Is it a one-way sync? Is it a two-way sync?
But we don't want to scare people with this. Like I feel like I don't want anyone to be intimidated by this. This is not difficult stuff.
Right.
It's just a change in the way we're thinking about data. That's what it is. It's not hard.
Well, yeah, let me just build off of that. The great thing is, if we start using a lot of these things that create efficiencies, our time gets freed up that we can use to learn about the new cool stuff, that we can use to learn about an industry-specific app so that we can maybe, throw some marketing dollars at that specific industry, things like that. So it really becomes fun again.
Yeah, then we can sit down with our clients and do all the things that that we never have time to do.
Right.
So I did have a tax practice at some point. I don't want to say abandon it, but I moved on from that to do more of the fun stuff, because I found myself from January to, for probably 8 months out of the year, too busy to talk to clients, too busy to really pay attention to them. When we get these systems working efficiently, and they do work efficiently 95% of the time.
Absolutely.
Then I can take all that data that's been organized, that's been reconciled, that's been coded for me, and I can put it in front of my clients and explain it to them. That is a mind shift from, here it's done, these are reports from 12 months ago, and just sign this, hurry, because we're on the deadline. That's a different mind shift. So when we're leveraging technology to get the simple stuff done, then that frees us up to add value. Again, it's a catchphrase, but to sit with our clients and talk to them about the data.
Okay, we're going to talk a little more about how to get this done. After we take a little break, we're going to learn a little bit about Xero during our break. And when we come back, we'll give you your second CPE code for this session, so don't go away.
My name is Nuri Sainz, and I'm a Xero Certified bookkeeper. I wanted to be a police officer, but of course it was completely opposite of what I do now. I was really good with numbers, I was really good with math, so bookkeeping was a perfect fit. I've been doing bookkeeping here in San Diego for more than 25 years, and I started my business 21 years ago. I started like everybody else with a few clients, one at a time. Now I'm proud to say that I have 6 locations and more than 500 small businesses. Bookkeeping gives me the opportunity to really provide something bigger. One of my long-term clients is this place called Frutas. It's a healthy choice, healthy eating, and they've been my clients for 24 years.
Conozco a Nuri desde hace 24 años, referida por clientes para seguir adelante con los negocios de la manera que hemos crecido, es porque me ha ayudado a llevar la contabilidad de los impuestos y con la nómina y eso me ha ayudado para seguir adelante y quitarme un poco de responsabilidades.
My main focus as a bookkeeping is help my clients. By using Xero, they can save a lot of time. They don't have to deal with paperwork, and they can focus on growing their business. Cash coding, bank reconciliation, these things really allow me to have more time to spend with my clients. Xero also gives me the opportunity to have meetings away from the office with my husband, my business partner. We often try to find a place where we can enjoy a glass of wine, find solutions, plan ahead so we can accomplish what we want to accomplish, to be a better partner to all of our clients.
Welcome back. Be sure to look at the bottom of your screen right now and write down the second CPE code that is being displayed for you. That's the second of 3 codes that you'll need for CPE credit for this session. We're so glad you're with us and hope you're enjoying this session. We know we've been talking a lot about technology and how to become a better technology advisor, but we'd like to dig a little deeper into how that actually happens. And Tate and Amanda were kind enough to put together 3 different approaches that you can take to using technology to be a better advisor. So the first one we're calling going deep, and we're going to talk a little bit about what that means.
So going deep means taking the work that you're doing and expanding on it. So as I mentioned before the break, taking the compliance work and maybe going a little deep into interpretation of that, possibly doing some controllership level work, budgeting or forecasting. That's the thing it's quite easy to do, budgeting and forecasting with the right tools. But it seems to be the thing that always gets left behind because we're too busy catching up from the last month or the last year. So when we have that foundational data automated, we have a lot more time and we have more reliable data. So we can go ahead and push deeper and advise our clients on their businesses. Sometimes I think about being an accountant is like driving a car, another car analogy. What we have historically done is behind us. It's down the back in the rearview mirror. It's doing financial statements from last month or last year. I feel like we're moving to the part where we're talking about what's going on in the car, so managerial sort of accounting. This is what's happening this month. I can help my clients understand what's happened more recently and what's about to happen. But
the check engine light's on.
right. But what I really want to get to and what's meaningful for the clients is to look down the road and talk about business planning, about strategy, about forecasting, about budgeting. I got to get from the back end of the road to the front. But if I can do that, that's what going deep is.
Right. All of a sudden we're kind of taking that GPS role. We're saying, hey, you've got a right turn coming up here.
It's a real driving analogy session.
I can go all day with these. We'll just keep with it. But just like Amanda said, it's not that without technology we didn't want to do these things. It was just very hard to get it done because getting that foundational data that you need to leverage to be able to project forward was always such a process and such a pulling of information and coming up against those deadlines. And if you're reconciling the year 3 months later, a projection based off that 3 months later is not very valuable.
No, it's meaningless, right? So I can remember, I'm much older than Tate. I can remember working in a small accounting firm in Lafayette, Louisiana, which is where I grew up, and at the end of the year getting a stack of check stubs and paper bank statements and sitting there and adding up and it took weeks to close the year manually. Now we do it in days, sometimes hours. It's done. It's all in. All the bank data is in. Most of the coding of the data is automated. So then I start from a place of reliable financial statements. Then those hours that I was spending, now I can tell my clients, well, black T-shirts didn't sell very well. We're going to need to sell more white T-shirts or whatever the advice is. I have the time and the wherewithal to do that. Where before we were enforcing our own tax deadlines on the client's schedule. So we would say, well, we can't talk to you until, April 15th, but I'll probably go on vacation for a week. So let's call it the end of April.
Yeah.
And then I've got to be back for, like you had these sections of time during the year. We're telling our clients we can't talk to them for most of the year. What if they need an answer on March 3rd? What if they need to know that? So when we have our underlying financial data automated and reconciled on a timely, real-time basis, then we can be good advisors to our clients.
Mm-hmm. And I think for the most part, we've been talking about how we can implement technology to benefit the clients to an extent, but even internally, our old processes, I remember taping receipts onto printer paper to scan them and then going into the GL and marking it and then running a report and emailing it to the client. You're missing all these receipts, and it just created such a lag on the process versus
now. It gives
now.
you such an appreciation for now.
Oh man!
What about getting the jump drive delivered to you in the mailbox?
That was probably a step past what most of our clients are doing. That was at least
and
digital.
And then you're like, this is the wrong version. It won't work. I've got to download a new version.
Right.
And then you tell the clients the adjustments that need to be made, and they never get made. But
yeah, and we had
those days are over.
Stacks and stacks of blank check stock that we were printing and sending checks, and just the amount of time internally that was taking that is now free to be used in a actual relevant way for the clients to be able to give them that advice that they so need.
So you've got all the data loaded into your software, and now you want to think about doing projections or helping them look forward. I assume there are tools within, for example, Xero that would provide you with some guidance in that direction. But how do you know that's the right data? How do you trust that? It's not even real yet because it's a projection.
Well, what I think is it's a great way to create a touch point with your client. So let's say you just use the last 12 months, copy that over. That's a starting point, right? But let's look back to before. We're talking about people not being confident that they can do this. Well, let's just say, hey, we're starting to do budgeting. We'd love to talk to you about your budget. Here's the last 12 months. What does this look like to you? What do you think about these numbers? Are you more optimistic about your numbers? Are you more pessimistic? Do we need to be more seasonal? Retail, things like that. And then it creates different conversations that we didn't used to have with the clients. We used to always be, here are your numbers, move on. But when you create a collaborative process around that, then that's when you can start figuring out if it's relevant or if they're accurate and things like that.
Yeah, I had a conversation with a new client, this was a couple of years ago, where we went to coffee and I sat down with her and said, okay, well, tell me about your business. How I understand the operations, but what is your gut telling you? Do you think this business is going to grow? Do you think you've got struggles coming up? And she looked at me and said, my accountant has never asked me that before. Nobody's ever asked me about my business. Mm-hmm. That's crazy, but that's what a lot of folks do. So just being able to have a conversation about it.
I'm going to break here just for 1 second because I forgot to mention. I should have mentioned a few minutes ago, but. We had to do I have no idea what we had to do because it's a tech thing, but we had to do it.
The thing. You had to do the thing.
And I am to remind all of you, if you're having any difficulty with your screen, to just hit the refresh button on your screen and everything should be fine. But also, if during that period of time you missed either of the first two CPE codes, we're just going to display them both right now because we had a little transition period that we've gotten through, because this is our bad tech day. If you've been here all day, you know all about that. Anyway, this was just a little tech hiccup. Refresh your screen if you're seeing any problems. Write down the first two CPE codes if you don't have them already. And we're going to jump right back in here to talking about forecasting and budgeting. And by the way, I love your approach to budgeting because so many people just say, here are last year's numbers, so here are next year's numbers. And it's either the same or maybe it's 5% higher or, and without any thought into what those numbers actually mean.
Well, what's so neat now is that there are these great tools that plug right into the general ledger, and not just the general ledger, but also non-financial data that make it very simple for you to have several scenarios. We can take last year's and just flip it and say, okay, well, 2020 is going to be the same as 2019. What does that look like? Maybe we want to increase, certain costs or certain revenues by a percentage. That's a different scenario. Maybe there's some seasonality to our business. We can go in and use these tools to very easily change the assumptions. It's not a 20-page Excel workbook like it used to be. I mean, I've done that. It is very simple using tools that are forecasting or dashboarding tools. And then we can also plug in non-financial data, website traffic, customers on site, all these neat things that we put them in the system, and it kicks out dashboards or charts or graphs.
Well, it enables you to see trends also, so that you and the client can talk about it and say, well, we just copied your numbers over, but from what we're seeing, your web traffic's increased 100%. So if that's tied to your revenue, we should probably update the numbers. So,
and this is simple to do in dashboarding platforms.
Yeah, 100%.
And I assume you've worked through this enough times and seen it play out that you're very confident in the way it works.
Yeah, I mean, again, back to my earlier point, don't try to learn every one of them, because there's many of them, and they all have their different strengths and weaknesses. I think it depends on lots of different factors. Are you trying to do kind of, I hate to say low level, but basic budgeting for a lot of people? Are you trying to do very specific budgeting for a few people? Or are you somewhere in between? There's different tools that can kind of match those different scenarios. But definitely very confident. And what I love that they've done now is they have where you can have different options. For example, you could have 3 different forecasts based on different possibilities. Let's say they want to know, okay, well, what if I open a new location? Or what if I hire more employees at the current location for different tasks? It takes it into more of that business owner's mindset. So you can base it on headcount, you can base it on customers, you can base it on lots of different things, where it's not just kind of putting your finger in the air and guessing and going with that. And
and this might surprise the folks out there, but business owners don't want to look at spreadsheets. They want to see pictures. They want to see, because then you can see aggregate data together. They want to see a chart. They want to see things that are colored and very clear.
Right.
Spreadsheets are not clear to most businesses.
something like a waterfall cash flow report can be very powerful, because red, green, right, in, out, start, end, it really makes it real. Then you can get deeper into certain parts, but when you have that summary that they understand, then they can really take something away to make better decisions moving forward, versus throwing a huge spreadsheet down in front of them and they just get overwhelmed and they kind of just sign off and say thanks,
Ignore it.
Thanks for my annual meeting, I'm leaving now.
All right, so that was what going deep means, going deep into the accounting services to offer much more financial information to your client than perhaps you've done in the past, and using technology to make that happen. We're going to break one more time for another brief message from Xero, our sponsor, and we'll give you your 3rd CPE code when you come back from that break. And then we have 2 more ways in which you can expand your services using technology. So don't go away, we'll be right back.
What is the best part about the Xero community? And action!
I think I did like one of these.
Shake it out. Shake it out.
I think it means, for probably the first time in a long time, it's fun to be an accountant. I think that's what the community means to me.
The best thing about the Xero community is the welcoming spirit.
Collaborative effort between everybody involved.
I really feed off the energy.
It's really helped us to grow our practice.
It's a community of people who like to collaborate and like to share ideas.
We cannot stay isolated. We have to stay connected.
It's there. It's at your fingertips. Honestly, I could not have learned what I've learned outside of the Xero community.
They're going to walk away with lifelong friends.
I really don't think I would be where I am today if I didn't have the Xero community around me.
Hello, we're back. Be sure to look at the code on the bottom of your screen. That's the third CPE code for this session. Be sure to write that down and save it with the other two you have. Again, if you're having any trouble with your video, because we had a little hiccup earlier this session, just click the refresh button and that should be fine. All right, we talked about going deep in expanding your accounting services using technology. Now we're going to approach it from a different angle and use technology for the ability to go wide with your client. What does that mean?
Certainly, I think with the changing of clients' expectations and with the advent of technology, I think they're expecting a lot more from their accountant, advisor, whatever term we want to use. And the great thing is now we're actually able to leverage some of these platforms to provide more services possibly than we were before. So if we think about the same type of firm, they're doing tax work, compliance work, bookkeeping, it's very straightforward to add things like payroll, to add things like even helping with HR with things like benefits and things of that nature, because most of the modern payroll platforms have that kind of stuff integrated. And what I think is so cool about that is over the last 12 years or so when I've been in the industry, it was always those questions we were getting asked, but we just didn't feel like we were able to help with some of those things. Mm-hmm. And so now we can really touch a lot of different areas that we used to not be able to. Another example, I think I touched on it briefly before, but talking to a client and they were having issues with scheduling their people. And so we were able to, through an integrated app, recommend something that was going to help with that pain point that, traditionally you would never think, oh, well, my accountant helps me with, scheduling all of my people. And those things, though, are the things that can really impact them on a day-to-day basis. Our budgeting, our forecasting, obviously that has a huge impact. But when you're able to impact their day-to-day operations, to me it's a totally different discussion, totally different engagement. And that's why we were talking about the advisor versus accountant thing earlier. You have to ask the right questions to be able to do those things, because most of the times they're coming in and not expecting that you're able to help with those kind of things.
Mm-hmm. But you want them to. You want to be the coach, right? You want to be their business coach on all things having to do with the business. I mean, I think that's where this is going. That's where this
if the goal is to expand your practice. It's an easy way to do it.
Right, and so I want to be the person that my clients call with whatever business problem they have. I hopefully have the solution, but if I don't have the solution, I know where to find it. Mm-hmm. And that's going wide, is being able to say, okay, we not only are your accountant, but we are your HR consultant, we are your operational consultant, your technology consultant, stuff that's beyond accounting.
Right.
And so the third way of expanding your services using technology is going focused. And what do we mean by that? Actually, we've already sort of talked about which areas that you guys have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that would be focusing on a niche or a vertical or a couple of them. So when I started in accounting in Lafayette, Louisiana in the 90s, our clients were in, the surrounding zip codes. Whoever walked in the door, that's who we took. So if somebody walked in the door and said, well, I have a real estate construction company, we'd be like, well, we don't know that, but we'll figure it out, or I have a restaurant, don't know restaurant accounting, but sure, we'll figure it out, because the market was so small. But now with virtual firms, I have an entirely virtual firm, my clients can be all over the country, and they are. I can pick a couple of verticals that I can get really good at. So I can be a really good law firm accountant and a really good real estate brokerage accountant. My pool is now this big, so I can have clients from all over the country or even the world if I wanted. And then by positioning myself and getting really good at that, I become a subject matter expert and I can charge higher fees. So the cool thing that happens when you focus on a vertical or two, or maybe three, but no more than three. The cool things that happen are that your billings can go up for the same work, right? So I can charge more because I'm a subject matter expert, but my costs, my costs go down because I'm efficient at it.
Cool.
Absolutely. Same thing that we did with music, entertainment, and sports was we're able to focus. It affects your marketing, it affects your people strategy. It's so much more than just technology, but from a technology perspective, you're able to get really good and be able to provide more value in a shorter amount of time.
And your clients are more likely to recommend you because, oh, well, she's the expert in law firms, so of course you want to go there.
Or other accountants.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like I'm not going to take on a law firm, but I know Amanda does law firms,
Right.
so I'll absolutely. And she's recommended musicians to us before, so it's really cool. Mm-hmm.
Well, this flew by.
It did.
But we're out of time. Thank you so much. Thank you, Xero, for sponsoring this session. Thank you to all of you who have attended. We're going to change our set real quickly, and we'll be back. While we're gone, we have a brief commercial break for you, and then we'll be back with a new session, so don't go away.